So I think I will get in long. My stop's going to be a little bigger here. It's choppy, so I need to give a pretty wide stop. I'm going to get in long here on this break. It'd be nice to see a little bit of a pullback, but you know, just have this candle pull back a little bit and then continue, but it's still a good spot.
Order
I
filled.
like the signal. It is choppy, but pushing the overnight highs I think is solid. I think I would have preferred to wait for this pullback here to continue. Like just like literally a couple point pullback here. Just because seeing how this candlestick, the market reacts to that. I don't want to move up yet. This bottom little here, definitely like a potential of like, oh, maybe I should move up there, but I think I just gotta let it play out a little bit more. I need a little, like one more break higher. If we just kind of do this, where we're just kind of trending, and I can move up with pullbacks, because we could get up here and then start slow down, do a little bit of pullback, flag out, and then continue the trend to the upside. And I would love to be in on that because the market's been trendy. And so, but to do that, you know, I'm going to have to hold through some pullbacks. And so now we've hit 1x. That's just kind of my spot for moving my stop up. I'm just going to move it up here just because that's kind of a nice, you know, it totally might pull back to this area where it had kind of a little bit of resistance. You know, we're kind of reading the micro moves there. And looking at this, kind of got an uptrend here, but you know, it's just, I want to try and just give this wiggle room. Okay, it's kind of there's not really a good uptrend. It's in an uptrend. I mean, it's slowly moving here. I'm gonna move this to obviously break even now. Ideally, like coming up to here is where I would think we're gonna slow down. We've got these lows here. I think we could slow down. I don't really want to move up to here. I think I'm just gonna let this thing play out with the idea of, hey, I might have cashed the low of the day, and I don't really care to try and capture, I don't know, half an X or 1X. I'd rather let it, again, have movement to play. You know, I'm not going to lose anything. You know, trying to figure that out. I want, it needs to get up to here before I start trying to look at taking profits. Doesn't look good, doesn't feel good holding through this pullback, especially when I'm like, oh, well, I could have just got out up here, or, you know, some kind of trend break right here, and, you know, still got $1,300. It's funny in hindsight to be like, oh, $1,300, I don't want that. I want to wait and give it room, but then when it just pulls back on you and knocks you out at break even, you don't make any money, you're like, well, that's stupid, I shouldn't have done that. Kind of waiting for this. Feels good emotionally to see that happen. If that gets reversed, that's definitely not a good sign. Okay, now we are starting to get up here. And the big thing is just seeing, what are these pullbacks doing? You know, every time we have a spike lower, it gets gobbled up. Spike lower, gobbled up. Spike lower, is it going to continue to get gobbled up? Basically, the idea is just seeing, is it getting gobbled up still? As we just, you know, are we just continuously doing this? I think we will. We did kind of break above this and spike lower and kind of bottomed off of here. I don't see why we couldn't, you know, this new high comes and tests this area. I'm not really married to this trend line. I'm more looking at the structure and seeing, okay, what are these pullbacks doing? You know, because here, we broke this trend line. It wasn't a great trend line. There was some kind of trend line here, maybe here. It wasn't a good one, but this was a clear trend, and then that kind of aggressive trend changed here, and pulled back, but it pulled back to an area that makes sense and is healthy of where this kind of was struggling here to break through this previous high. And so it broke that and then pulled back to retest that and then continued higher. It's still in this uptrend. We're still making higher highs, higher lows. The scary thing with this kind of movement is there's a high chance that all of a sudden it just spikes. Maybe not this much, obviously, but it spikes something and volatility increases. Now, we could also get it the other direction where it's consolidating, and it just starts to accelerate. That would be amazing, obviously. But until then, just kind of, same thing of just kind of playing this how we see fit. I see potential. We could come up here, pull back, and bounce. That would be maybe the next previous high that it was resistance. This is the last big candlestick. And then we're still just continuing higher from there. So there's the spike lower I was nervous about. Hopefully it doesn't eat too much. I mean, the thought would be maybe it comes down to here. This is the previous swing. And again, with just how we've been eating up those spikes. And so just trying to look at and see what that looks like, how that plays out. Hopefully it just kind of eats it up. If it starts to, show some weakness or kind of make a lower high, I'll definitely try and close out. Like getting 1.5 would be kind of nice. You can try and give the market as much wiggle room as possible, but at some point you do have to manage it a little bit and not just be, I'm either gonna go break even or I'm gonna hit 10x. Like that's ridiculous, You got to read the market and play with what it's giving you, and the idea is you're there for when the opportunities are there, but if they're not if they're not happening, you manage accordingly. The NASDAQ is kind of coming down to this previous support zone too. So this is definitely where I would want it to hold in this uptrend. The idea is it could do one more spike here and then continue higher, but this does look pretty bearish. This looks pretty bearish. The idea is it's still just testing this area and saying, okay, sold off, but our buyer's gonna step back in. That's kind of what I'm waiting to see. I've kind of got this area too. I don't have too much more to do management wise. I want to see it have kind of a pullback and make a push higher before I move my stop below that. Because I'm not looking to, get out on a spike lower in this market that has been very strong with spikes lower. So, but this is where my stop is going to be. I'm not really going to move it. I think that's plenty of a pullback to hold through. It's hit the highs where I think a lot of traders would have wanted to close here. Seeing it slow down and break this is definitely people selling. This is people starting to sell and be like, okay, I'm not going to hold through this pullback. It's, hit the opening highs and kind of this trend line where the easy money, I think, is done. And, hindsight, if this doesn't work out, maybe I should have got out. But I think the trend is just so healthy right now. And again, the overall big picture of this is not a great chart to look at. Maybe I'll just pull up even just a daily chart. Daily chart, it's like I think this is just a spike lower, a fake lower, big picture, and we're going to continue higher. Could that still stop me out and continue higher? Yeah. But, I think the big picture bias is long. And so trying to hold through the difficult pullbacks and not let the emotions get scared and wait for kind of to see what this happens. Like, this is a nice strong candlestick. NASDAQ is looking the exact same. If this fails, I'm going to call it and get out for sure. Because that's buyers coming in. And when buyers have stepped in, it's just kind of continued higher after that. You know, it hasn't done a double spike lower. You know, maybe it did a little higher low right here, but it definitely didn't break the low. You know, your swing low is put in and it continues higher. So I think I'm actually gonna move this up a little bit, because I think if it's, you know, then if it breaks that big candlestick, you know, it could have a spike here and continue higher. But if it breaks this big candlestick, I think that's a big signal that, okay, trend's over, and we're gonna see what happens after that. Also, while we wait for this to play out, I've just made a free strategy guide that gives you a full PDF of my strategy here and kind of a step-by-step list of what I'm looking for and kind of spots to avoid. And so you can get that down in the link in the description or this QR code, and it will just give you a really easy, you know, done for you list to go back on to look for, you know, what to look for and how to consistently execute this. Well, we're climbing. That's nice. I'm gonna move this up here. And this is a strong bullish push of 2 candles. NASDAQ is looking to break as well. I mean, it's nice sideways movement and still keeping that uptrend. We're just sitting right here, we're waiting to break this high. Okay, that high's broken. I'm just gonna remove this uptrend. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. I mean, what we're really looking for is, here's the actual highs now. We can actually break those and continue higher. Just sitting here waiting after we had this move up, you know, it looks like, okay, might fail. Now it just looks like we're going in a, we're doing a bull flag pretty much at the highs here. You know, we've kind of retested the previous high, and now we're just kind of maybe looking to make our next leg up. NASDAQ actually looks stronger. It's already doing this. And ES seems like it's about to follow too. In terms of stop, I mean, I'm letting this break out, but probably just move it up here. Again, you know, this isn't where my real stop is. This is a mental stop. If we pulled back and started to do something here, I'd probably, you know, move it here. But pretty much at this point is I'm looking for this to make one more spike up here, I think, and, you know, look to get out. Holy sh**. That is not exciting. Please don't just screw me. I'm going to, some news clearly just popped. I think I'm going to pull my stop below that swing just because it's going to suck to get knocked out like that. But I don't know what that could be. I don't want to let it spike way down. The hope is that it just double bottom there and it goes up. I don't know. We'll see. That's scary to see because it was just cruising, chugging along. And if someone just decided to say something on the news or something happened, it'd suck to just have that ruin a big trade. But it's totally possible in a volatile time like this. The hope is that that's just a weird spike, knocks people out, and now my stop's in a good spot based on that, and it, you know, chugs higher. If not, hey, I'm getting out with still close to 3x of profit. So still really sick trade. NASDAQ, same exact thing. Kind of holding this area. I think we just got to see what happens here. That's really intense all of a sudden. Just got to breathe through it, let it do its thing. I move my stop in a good spot. Maybe we get volatility in the other direction. That totally could have started something. But we could also just go back into our sluggish move. Kind of crazy to zoom back and say that I've stood here and watched this whole thing since here. And it's always crazy, like when you're entering in a trade and thinking, oh, what's the likelihood that this kind of does its, moves up like this or works out, and in hindsight looking back, oh, this is an obvious head and shoulders, but learning how to do that and enter when you see that, that's the harder part. And then obviously managing this trade has been extremely difficult. I think this and hard, and knowing when to move the stop up and when not. I mean, that's just takes practice and experience. And so don't if there's people in my room that have said they got stopped out and stuff like that, and that's totally fine. Like, it takes time. And of course it just depends on your plan and your strategy and what you're trying to do, of how you manage it. Nasdaq's kind of hitting this area. Definitely where I would think it would start to slow down, or just find that resistance. ES is already on a 5-minute. I mean, looking great. Maze. I know, little puppy. We haven't gone on a walk at all. As we wait for this, my dog. My dog is over here just looking at me like, hello, what are you doing? We should have gone on a nice walk by now, and you're just standing there way longer than normal. You didn't poo on the carpet, did you? No? Good girl. Mace, I'm almost done, okay? You just have to be a little patient. It's just how it is. Looks like might get knocked out here. I'm not moving my stop though. I'm happy where it is. Nasdaq even is looking a little stronger, which is interesting. But looks like I got knocked out. Still like $3,500 on a trade. I think it was a great trade. Bummer that I didn't get out at a better spot, but I mean, I think it was a sick trade, sick spot. Could it just spike here and go higher? Totally, 100%. But happy to call it there and just be done for the day. Make sure to check out that new strategy guide for free in the link in the description. Definitely worth it for a nice, easy visual of how to use this strategy yourself.